public comments today? No public comments, all right. All right, we need to approve the minutes from the December 18th meeting. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Okay, we'll cover our old business first. Do we have at the last meeting we had the review of the bylaws. Do we have a motion to approve those?
So we've got changes that are in y'all's packet based on the conversation that was had at the December 8th meeting. I don't know if y'all want to discuss those before approving them, because they can be approved in part, or if there's changes to that.
Can you give us a Reader's Digest version of the changes?
So at the December 9th meeting, there was discussion around the bylaws did not contain information related to the chair and the vice chair related to the election of them, when that election would happen, what would be done if the chair and the vice chair were not at the meeting. And then there was a little bit of discussion about whether it should be the publicly appointed individuals or not. We included all the language in here, which is why I say all of it doesn't have to be looked at, or doesn't have to be approved, it can be done in pieces. But so Metro Legal worked to include the language related to putting a time frame on when those elections happen, and it's either the September meeting or the meeting immediately following when the council members are appointed to the committee if it's a year that they turn over. The other instance, they added some language about putting the publicly appointed committee members as chair and vice chair if you don't want to do that. It also says, it has the procedures in the event that the chair and vice chair are not here, then y'all would elect somebody and they would, the remainder of the members would elect somebody to lead that particular meeting. So those are the changes within the membership and officers. Another thing that Metro Legal recommended was that we review the Planning Commission bylaws because they have some other sections that may be relevant. One of the ones that stuck out to me was the ethical standards section. It's kind of funny that we don't have that already in there. So pulling from the Planning Commission, you see that there's an ethical standards section that's been added in here, if y'all want to include that as well. The first piece holding y'all to the standard of conduct, and the second one explicitly stating what to do if there's a conflict of interest. Funny enough, every year that we have a peer review, our peer review team asks us if y'all have to, if there's anything that says y'all need to state conflicts of interest, and every year we say, well, there's a training about ethics, but we don't have it in here. So this actually helps with our peer review as well, because it explicitly says what to do if there's conflict of interest.
Any discussion, comments, questions? Ms. Vice Mayor.
If I may, so the ethical standards for the Planning Commission very specifically identify a financial interest in any property that is a subject matter, right? Because they're dealing with zoning, and rezoning can change the value of land and so forth. So I apologize, the translation there for what is proposed by Metro Legal, are you all proposing more general language, whereas the Planning Commission is sort of like property specific?
Yes.
Or
so we would propose that it be more general in the fact that it's whether it is business relationship, because in the realm of audit, there is independence in fact and in appearance.
Okay.
And so there's also the appearance piece of it that we thought was important to include, because though there may not be a financial interest or any other type of real interest, it may appear as if there's a conflict.
This language would align itself much more with the professional standards of the AICPA.
Yep, okay. Thank you for that explanation. Then I know the Planning Commission also had something about ex parte communication. We're not pulling that across in particular, so it's more around the disclosure of conflict of interest or appearance of conflict of interest, so not Section 4, Part C of the Planning Commission. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right, well, as it relates to the ethical standards portion, Chair, I don't know if we want to take it in all or in part, but on that piece in particular, I don't have any more discussion, and I support that, so I don't know how we want to take it up, but I do.
I think we will ultimately take a motion to accept all of it.
That makes
sense. So if you've
sense.
got comments about some of the other
Okay.
comments, let's address those as well.
Okay. I don't know if members have thoughts about, I know we discussed last time, Chair, that this is a particularly small body, and potentially the perception when members of the Metro Council are relaying or elevating opportunities for audit, that, you know, there are 3 people who are politically, right, elected, and just kind of contemplating the appearance of that. But I also am a little wary of a board that is this small, putting that obligation effectively on the 2 appointed persons, such as yourself, and saying like, well, if you get appointed to this, like, you're gonna be the chair and the vice chair. So I'm sort of mindful of the perception or the optics of any one of the elected officials being in leadership of this committee, thus it appears political or otherwise, but I also don't wanna maybe overcorrect and say specifically that you 2 gentlemen or whoever may follow you must serve as the chair and the vice chair. So I wanted maybe to discuss that because I feel like I had elevated it around the perception of concern, but I don't know if we wanna maybe overcorrect and actually put it into bylaws, so.
I think you raise a good point, and I, by the way, I do agree with you, that I think the nature of this committee and the importance of maintaining independence
Yes.
of this committee, having a council member serve in those capacities probably is not the wisest course of action,
Agree.
would be my thought.
How has that happened historically? I know Councilmember Johnston, I think, was vice chair.
I believe she was
last
the
term.
first non-appointed person to be the vice chair.
Okay.
And that was just by sort of happenstance or
It
historical
was just by,
practice?
I think that what
We
happened
went
was
through
there was a
period where we
volunteer.
only had one
Yes,
person that
Yes.
was appointed.
Okay,
This seat was open for quite some time.
okay. Okay. Okay.
So if that were to happen again and we had adopted this, would that mean we would be without, I guess, a vice chair? Because,
Right.
yeah.
Because when you only have 2 appointed seats, it stands to reason. I mean, we do really try now by way of a spreadsheet, keeping up with the cadence of who's rotating in and out, so we don't have big lags in seats, but for a variety of reasons, sometimes one of these seats might be empty. So,
I think maybe it makes sense more to your point of like, kind of like not having a perception of control of this body, saying that the chair will always be one of the appointed members, but allow the vice chair to be someone else.
I think that makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Because ultimately, you want to give some leeway, because since there's only 2 of us,
Yeah.
but you also need to operate, like if, you know,
Right.
I'm gone or, you know, anything else happens, so.
Yeah.
So is that a change that you want to propose?
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can articulate.
But
Yeah.
before you do,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna ask legal a question real quickly. If we're gonna modify what's already in here, does that mean we defer this for a vote to the next meeting?
I think that would be wise, because then we could make the changes and come back and show it to y'all. And so I think it'd be good if you articulated the changes you want made. I'll take notes, we'll make them before the next meeting and produce them to you all before the meeting in plenty of time so you can review them. And then we can just vote on the bylaws then, so that it's, you're not voting on them now to adopt a change, and then maybe we change it and you're like, I kinda wanted it to say X and not this, so I think that's easiest and cleanest.
Okay, thank you. So
Chair,
you-
if I
we
may,
sit-
then can we, I mean, I'm good with the ethical standards, so I don't, in that particular case, maybe we want to wait and just re-vote on all of it?
I think
Okay,
so.
okay, got it.
And if you could articulate, though, the changes that you would like to make, and then maybe vote on that, like someone make a motion with the changes and then say where it is, and then vote on it so that we know that everybody wants to make that change.
So
Okay.
so I can,
Got
you want me to?
articulated?
Yeah,
Yes, please,
okay.
thank you. You did
So-
an excellent job, go ahead. Yep.
So I'll just articulate, so it'd be a change to the sentence that says, the 2 publicly appointed committee members shall serve as the chair or vice chair, and have that instead read that the chair shall always be one of the two publicly appointed committee members, and the vice chair may be any other member of the body. And I'll let you form the wordsmith that to your liking.
And
Is that a motion?
Yes, please.
yeah, I will second that motion, but can I include some language refinement that is related to what was just said, but is actually kind of different? I know we're talking about the same people, but I don't think these gentlemen are actually two publicly appointed committee members. They're appointed by the mayor and confirmed by the council. They're members of
They're
public, or
appointed
how does this happen?
directly.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Y'all don't follow. You
Yeah.
are here by virtue of your service to the professional organization of accountants.
I
And
think we are the
apologize.
only two
Yeah.
members of metro government that are not
Thank
appointed.
you. I'm so sorry.
by
I'm so in my rotation
Yeah.
of appoint, confirm, how we
Right,
do
right.
what we do.
So
Thank
I'm-
you. So
I was
okay.
appointed by the Nashville Chapter of Tennessee Society.
Thank you.
You're appointed by the Chamber of Commerce.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Yes, two publicly appointed. I was just looking at that going, wait, is that how we do that? Thank you. So I
Which
concur.
again, from an independent standpoint,
Yes,
makes a lot of sense.
absolutely, agreed, yes. So I second that motion or concur with how that was articulated.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So we will defer that till our next meeting and look at that language at that point in time. Thanks very much. Okay, new business. Election of the chairman and vice chair.
Well, we put this on there thinking that that would be, that language, the bylaws would be adjusted. I mean, either way, we've talked about there may be.
But I mean, our terms have run as of this meeting, right?
Actually, it's the next meeting.
The next
We had moved it up because of the language changes that, and so we were gonna go on and do it, because if y'all do start elections in September, that it's a short term almost for this period.
Yeah, good point, I think.
So we moved it up. But technically, yes, y'all's current, well, you technically are the chair, but we don't have a vice chair right now.
Well, I nominate Tom to continue to serve as the chairman.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And I will nominate Matthew to be vice chairman for this short period.
Second.
Second. All
All
in
in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So this is for a short period until September, is that correct?
That's correct. In September, assuming the bylaws are changed as in similar fashion, yes, in September we'll have another election.
All right, the next agenda item is the schedule of expenditures of federal and state awards.
We have,
Colonel Auditor's here.
yes, we have 3 items to present today. Can I go in the order that
You can
makes
go in
most sense to
whatever
me?
order.
Okay. I'm gonna do the Mark's, Mark's passing them out. I'm gonna do the first one he's passing out first, presentation to the audit committee. This is kind of our conclusion on the 2025 audit of the ACFR. Just a reminder, Mark England was the manager on all the national government work. Jennifer Monternock is here. She was the partner on the single audit, the government grants audit, which is the second thing we're going to present. Jennifer will go through this presentation. Go ahead, Cynthia. Thank you, Mark. This is the schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state financial assistance. And then Mark's going to go over, we do have a management letter comment, and Mark will go over our management letter comment. So starting with this one right here. I'll be pretty brief, but if you have questions, stop me. If you want to dig in anywhere, I'd be happy to do that. Starting with the agenda on page 2. You can see, we're going to go through our responsibilities versus management responsibilities, fraud risk, our deliverables, some of our audit methodology. Some of this is repeat of what our planning document suggested. Really, we didn't have much change from what we planned on to what we ended up doing. some new accounting pronouncements coming up, so I'll point those out. Page 3 is our engagement team members. This is as we projected in our planning document. Page 4 highlights our responsibilities as well as management's. Ours is to express an opinion about whether the financial statements prepared by management under the oversight of this committee are fairly presented in all material respects in conformity with general accepted accounting principles. We performed our audit in accordance with government auditing standards, but also the uniform guidance. Uniform guidance is the statement of, is the audit on the grants, the single audit that Jennifer's gonna present. We talked a lot about independence. Lauren was talking. Our job is to maintain independence and professional skepticism throughout the audit. Finally, our job is to report to this audit committee and to management if we find any significant deficiencies in internal controls, instances of non-compliance, or any kind of fraud. Management's responsibility are the flip side of that. They're to fairly present the financial statements in accordance with GAAP, to adopt proper accounting policies, to establish and maintain effective internal controls, prevent and detect fraud, and to report to us any fraud that they may have found. Next slide, page 5, independence. Under AICPA Code of Professional Conduct Rule 101, we are independent. We believe, in fact, in appearance. Page 6, we address fraud risk. It's been since 2002 that SAS 99 came out. It still seems like not too long ago. But our job is, it's not a forensic audit, but there are certain requirements that we do look at from a forensic standpoint. Our job is to gather information. It's brainstorming amongst our team, inquiring of management, not just just the financial team, but other areas of personnel, investigating anything unusual, unexpected relationships. A lot of that is through our analytical procedures, things that just look strange. And then respond to those identified risks, digging a little deeper, maybe doing substantive testing, maybe just inquiry to satisfy ourselves. We do test for management override. A lot of that has to do with estimates, looking for inappropriate bias, and manual journal entries. And then we evaluate that audit evidence, and if there's anything to report, we would be reporting it now, but we did not find anything. The next page, page 7, is our deliverables. As you remember last meeting, you guys have, always get the word wrong, it's not approved. Accepted the ACFR, the Annual Comprehensive Financial Report. The hospital financial statements, we are done. There's a couple very small things we're waiting on, but we're done with that audit. We have not issued it final yet because we hadn't had the opportunity to meet with their audit committee yet. As soon as we do that, as soon as we have a date on the books, we'll present that. MNPS, internal school funds, they do have a separate financial statement. We expect Jennifer's the partner on that. We're done with the audit. It's going to be unmodified, and we're going to issue it in short order, pretty soon. Jennifer will go over the single audit that was issued before December 31, which made the state very happy, and it was uploaded to, the data collection form was uploaded, and the report to the state. The required communications, that's what I'm doing now, and then the management letter you'll hear shortly from Mark. Page 8 and 9 is our audit methodology and approach. So the first major sector is the audit planning and risk assessment. You can't audit in any entity until you assess the risk. You got to find out where the risk is, and that's where the focus is on the audit. So the audit actually changes every year. It's a living, breathing thing. Each year it's different. The core guts of this audit remains the same. There's some risky areas that will always be high risk. We've listed them here, management overriding controls and improper revenue recognition, but it does change. So we assess controls, we assess where we can rely on controls by testing. What controls we don't rely on, we do substantive testing. That's on page 9. We've listed some of the areas on the left side of the page where we do test controls, cash receipts, property tax billings. So we're looking at the overall process of how these controls, or how these areas function, and we're testing the controls around them to get to an assurance level where we feel like that all the transactions are materially correct. Or on the right side, substantive testing, we're pulling outside things like, you know, confirming cash, confirming with brokers' investment balances, looking at SOC reports, doing things like that on the substantive side to get comfortable with those balances. Page 10, Jennifer will go over this in a minute, but we did, as I said, we did issue the single audit. Our coverage needed to be 20% because you're considered a low-risk auditee. If you were high risk, it would be 40%. For 10 or 12 years, I remember, we tested at the high-risk level for Metro Nashville, but it's been several years now where we've been low risk, which, as you can imagine, cuts down on our testing significantly. We've listed the major programs that were determined that needed to be tested on page 10. Page 11, there were 2 new GASB pronouncements. GASB 101, that did have a material impact. It was compensated absences, mainly around sick pay. So it's bringing your sick pay onto the books. There was a restatement of net position for that effect. Can't remember what the number was. 14 million? Something like that?
26?
26 million. Okay.
26 million.
GASB 102, it disclosures, certain risk disclosures, it didn't have a material impact. On to page 12, we do look at accounting estimates. Really, almost every set of financial statements I've ever seen have estimates. We look at those estimates to see that they're in compliance with GAAP and that they're reasonable, and those are properly disclosed in your ACFR, and we believe they were. Other areas that we're required to report, no transactions for which there's a lack of authoritative guidance. All significant transactions have been recognized in the proper period. No alternative accounting policies and practice related to material items. No difficulties encountered dealing with management performing the audit. Just to add to that, it was an easy audit. I feel like you'll see in our management letter comment as opposed to comments. We used to have a lengthy list of material weaknesses and significant deficiencies and a whole lot of management letter comments. This is the shortest letter since I've been involved. So that it's positive news. We appreciate the efforts of management. No disagreements with management regarding financial accounting and reporting. Management provided appropriate representations, so we get a management representation letter signed saying that they've furnished us everything that we've requested. They didn't hold anything back. And we're not aware of any communications by management and other independent accountants. Welcome to do that. Just want to be part of the conversations if that existed. Page 13, there were no unrecorded audit differences. Sometimes you can, if the auditors come up with a discrepancy that we've proposed a journal entry, but it's not material, management doesn't want to make it, we're fine with that. We would just disclose it to the committee, let you know, but there were none. Finally, on page 14, GASB 103 and 104, we don't anticipate any material changes to the ACFR regarding these. We'll keep looking at the financial reporting model improvements. Is mainly a disclosure information that will change. And then 104 is disclosure on certain capital assets. Really, if a government's trying to sell assets, there's some enhanced disclosures. But we'll keep we'll keep a look at that. They're very good about asking anyway and staying on top of it, so I don't have any worries that we'll get the proper disclosures in there next year.
So those will both be implemented in the June 30,
2026, correct, yes.
On the compensated absences part on page 11,
Yes.
is that something you'll go over in more detail tonight, or?
We can, I wasn't planning on it, but we can.
Just
I
a question
think-
about whether that crossed all departments, or whether that was like errors in reporting, like how that kind of.
No, it wasn't errors in report, it did, yes, it crosses all Metro employees that are subject to those compensated absence policies, which I think is 100%, right?
Except for special revenues, like grants and
Okay.
stuff. If they didn't have personnel, it didn't affect them. It was just personnel funds that affected.
Yeah, so if I may,
Yep,
if that's
please.
okay, so let me go back. So in the past, before this accounting, change came out, we didn't record anything for compensated absences because we weren't required to. So you didn't put a liability on the books at all for these compensated absences because it wasn't required by GASB. So
It's a
in
change in the accounting.
This is a
Yes.
change in accounting, I
Yes,
should have mentioned.
yes. So I wanted to make sure it was on the record. There was no error in the prior act first, no errors. It's in a change in accounting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got
okay.
Every government that's subject to GASB is addressing this.
Yeah. Just getting it on the record.
Any other questions? Thank you for that. All right, ready to move to the next? Yes.
Next, I'm going to go over this report, schedule expenditures of federal and state awards and reports required under the Single Audit Act and Uniform Guidance. We have two independent audit reports that we've included in our report. The first one is the independent auditor's report over internal control over financial reporting and compliance under government auditing standards. We also refer to this as the Yellow Book. This report talks about internal controls over financial reporting. We do not provide an opinion over your internal controls. However, if there's any non-compliance over the financial statements or any deficiencies in internal controls, particularly if they rise to a level of a material weakness or significant deficiency, we would report those here. But we did not have any findings over the financial statements. The second report is the independent auditor's report on compliance for each major program and on internal control over compliance required by the Uniform Guidance over the CFA. This is our report over the federal expenditures. We are required to audit major programs, which is determined by our risk assessment. We had 6 major programs this year. We look at internal controls over the programs themselves and internal controls over compliance. And we are providing an opinion over each major federal program. So the 6 programs, we are providing an opinion which was unmodified over all of those programs.
One thing I'll point out, keep in mind, on the first page of this, page 3 overall, some of the component units like MDHA, NES, and the airport, they're gonna have their own single audit. So that amount added to 226 million is carved out of this CFA, and those are issued separately by their auditors.
Good point.
When you do the carve out on that, does that then affect how your 20% is calculated?
Our 20% is only on the expenditures that are included in your schedule here.
Got it.
So Metro Nashville had 383 million of federal expenditures. That total is included on page 20. 383 million, of which 8.8 million was passed through to subrecipients. So we audited 20% of that total. We also audited this schedule, and we have provided an opinion in our Uniform Guidance report, and that is also unmodified, which is a clean opinion. The next schedule is your state awards. On page 24, there was 70 million in state awards that was expended by Metro government during fiscal year 2025.
Can you restate that amount just one more time?
70 million in state awards.
What page?
Page 24.
Okay.
On page 29, this is a nice summary of all of our testing and reporting. It discusses auditor's report issued over the financial statements. That's our opinion over the ACFR, which was unmodified. In our Yellow Book report, we reported no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, or non-compliance that was material to the financial statements. That means we didn't have any findings. Over the federal awards, no material weaknesses, significant deficiencies in our compliance, our auditor's report issued on compliance was unmodified. At the bottom of page 29, those are the 6 major programs that we audited and are providing an opinion on.
Those top 4 are clustered together as well.
Yes, the child nutrition cluster. And then on page 30, the dollar threshold used to distinguish between type A and type B is $3 million. So any program that had over $3 million in expenditures was considered type A. We did a risk assessment on those, and that has less judgment over it. If a program hasn't been audited in the last 3 years, we're required to test it. If there's been any material weaknesses, we're required to test it, things of that matter. For the type B, we also do risk assessment over those. Those would be anything under $3 million. We do have a little bit more judgment there. Anything that would be high risk that we would test. All these programs were type A that we tested in 2025. And then if we had any findings, they would be addressed here, and we didn't have any findings in 2025, and we had no prior findings to follow up on from 2024. Any questions?
I really just want to thank Crossland and the accounting team, finance team. This is the first year we have finished the single audit by 12/31 in maybe 5 years, like since COVID. And so longer, thanks, John. So it's a huge, I mean, this is a huge accomplishment to get this done by 12/31. It is a large lift, the single audit is, and a lot of times it does go kind of unrecognized or unnoticed. But there is so much work that goes into the single audit. So I just wanted to say thanks to the Crossland team, thanks to Jennifer, who's our chief accountant, and to Kevin Brown, deputy finance director, for all of y'all's hard work in getting this done.
Very much appreciate it. I'll second that. Thank you. All right.
We'll move on to the letters of recommendation to management. Mark?
Yep. So as John stated earlier, we only had one letter of recommendation to management. During our testing over internal controls over bank reconciliations, we noted that there was a few bank reconciliations that were not prepared timely or reviewed timely. We stated them here on page 2 or 3 of the report. And then we gave our recommendation for how we believe they should be recorded, and the management's response came through, and with the new implementation of the Oracle Cloud and assigning additional staff hours to it, they believe they can appropriately fix this comment.
Any questions, comments?
Again, I just want to say, we've never issued just one comment. I mean, it was weird, I had to go through and change all the language to comment versus comments.
Singular, not plural.
Again, thank you for all the hard work and what you provide to the city. Appreciate it. So we have to accept these.
Yes, y'all usually accept the single audit and the management letter. You've already accepted the ACFR, which was the first presentation, but it's the single audit.
So do I hear a motion to accept the single audit report?
I'll move.
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes. Now do I hear a motion to accept the management letter, or letter of recommendations to management?
Oh.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
You're both accepted. Thank you so much. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to.
I'll see y'all later. If y'all want to leave any extra copies that you do not need for yourself, I can make sure there are extras in the council office if any
Okay.
council member wants to.
Yeah, here's a couple extras.
Great.
And I have some here.
I can use Jennifer's version here as well.
I don't think they want to talk about.
And please feel free to
26
keep
stuff
extras for
already.
yourselves, I just always,
Starting
Just take a
2026,
handful.
right now.
Handful of those cards, we won't audit them, I promise.
I'm not gonna keep them all.
Yeah, sure.
Lauren, you discuss the annual work plan?
Yes, so our annual audit plan runs from February until January. We are only able to do audits on that plan, which is why we amend it throughout the year if needed. But annually, we present to you all a proposed plan. We also have other options if things want to change, just so that that's kind of sets our work plan for the year. So to take it back to how we start this, we start with a bunch of metrics related to all the departments. So we look at financial metrics, how many FTEs do they have, grant funding, how much turnover did they have, if they're part of a mayor's initiative, how long has it been since we've audited them. We take all of these and put them into a spreadsheet that has a risk register for each amount based on how percentage of metro. And it comes out with a risk score, which is back in the risk prioritization pieces of it. It tells you what, table 2 tells you what we kind of looked at, and then the third one is kind of what the results of that risk register, or what that risk assessment was. And we take that, but at the same time, we typically have large departments that are always riskier. They have more employees, they have more expenditures, they have more revenues. So it's not always what we go by. The other place that we do is we ask council members for ideas. We ask audit committee members, we ask metro department heads, and we take all of this into consideration. We also look at other audit shops across the US. What have they looked at? Are there certain topics that are cropping up across, that are seeing, risks that we're not thinking of? And we take all of this into consideration, and we come up with with audit ideas. And the other piece of this is we evaluate how many staff hours we actually have to do these. You'll see our staff hours actually went up this year because we've fully staffed. We've hired some great entry-level staff auditors. However, they're hitting the ground running. They're helping make our projects go really well. And so we think that we can do more this year. We also have a higher consulting budget, a little bit, that we can rely on. And so we take all of that into consideration, and we come up with how many hours we think is feasible for us. And so that's what's on that first page, is how many hours that we have, taking out the fact that we have 2 investigators now, and so they're gonna be focused on investigation. But also leaving a little bit of wiggle room in case we have an audit that comes up that's requested, that maybe we might have some leeway in adding to the plan. So we take that, and on the next pages is what we actually came up with our proposed audit plan. So we start with however many hours we have remaining on audits that are already in progress. The ones that are listed here are ones that still have field work, or they're wrapping, they've got a decent number of hours left. We have some others that are in draft reporting, and by the time we get to that, the hours on it are not that much, so we don't really even have to take those into consideration. So that first section is the 7 audits that we currently have ongoing in different phases that have to be wrapped up. So we have hours associated with that. which on that first page, I think we have like 2,200 hours that we think are still gonna go towards this. And then the next section are our new audits. The first two, what I'll do is I'll go through each one, I'll high level kind of explain why they're on the plan. The objectives, preliminary objectives are on there. It's kind of where we have ideas, but until we go do an audit, we have no idea necessarily what those objectives are gonna be. So the first two we're carrying forward from the current audit plan, or from last, I guess the 2025 audit plan. The first one being sheriff's felon housing cost settlement calculation. This one was on our plan for years and then it fell off because we didn't have time for it, and then we put it back on. And we didn't have time for it last year because we were doing another sheriff's office audit, but we wanna make sure that it stays on the plan, just because it should be pretty straightforward. But looking at that calculation and make sure that it's being done correctly and that Metro's receiving the funds that we are allowed to receive and that we can claim. So that's the first one. The second one is the confiscated funds and evidence room at MMPD. This is another one that we put on there last year. I believe actually the audit committee asked to move it from the other section to actually being on the plan. As we've done other audits in MMPD, we've seen this as a risk area, and we think it's worth going out there and auditing, because it's been a very long time since we've looked out there, and it's a high-risk area just because of the nature of what they're dealing with. So that's what that one's on there. The third one is our Titan Stadium. So we contract out the Titan Stadiums in our audits to one of our consultants because they have construction audit experts that are on staff that we don't. And it being such a large project, we want to make sure that those interim audits continue to happen. So that's on there. The next two are second parts of audits that we're wrapping up right now, actually. So the harassment, discrimination, and retaliation. Last year when we put it on our audit plan, it was requested that we include general HR, like central HR for Metro government, that we include MMPS and we include MMPD. We are wrapping up the central HR one right now. So we have put MMPS's section on it for next year, or for this coming year, to keep that moving. Since we already have another audit in MMPD, we decided we would do MMPS first, so that we're not doing two audits and we're spreading out where we're auditing. So that's why we have MMPS harassment on there. The second one, so last year we added to the audit plan inmate health services. And it was very broad. There was discussion and we made sure that it would include the behavioral care center, the jails and detention center, and then the programs that happen after, or that are offered while you're in the detention facilities or afterwards. We are wrapping up, we actually hopefully will have that one issued this week for the behavioral care center. So what happened was our auditor went out there and did the initial planning for all of these areas, but they are very distinct. What's being done at the behavioral care center, which is a very small facility, is different than the jail and detention center and the programs. So this is the second part of that, which would be a much bigger audit where we're looking at the jail and the detention center. And so that's what the fifth one is. The sixth one is Metro Action Commission Operations and Fiscal Management. Yes.
Question on that one. My assumption is that just addresses the jail, the adult jail and detention center,
Yes.
not juvenile.
It does not. That's a separate facility.
Yeah.
We did a juvenile court audit 2-3 years ago, and looked at some of this stuff around there.
Thank you.
So the next one is Metro Action Commission. This one is a little bit broader because we have not audited the Metro Action Commission since 2013, which is a very long time for us. So we try to avoid some grant-funded things because there are certain federal rules and stuff that we can't look into, and so we don't know enough about Metro Action Commission to completely focus this one in, but we know we need to audit them because it has been so long, and so this one is kind of broad. The next one is the Arts Commission. Yes?
Can you speak to that a little more about federal things you can't look into? What does that mean?
So in the past, when we've done audits of Metro Action Commission way back, so there are certain things that are federally funded and it's based on need. And so there is certain information that's provided based on economic status, or it's private information that, because it's under a federal program, we can't look into. So we're not gonna look into things like that. But so that's why we wanna get our hands around what other programs they have and the limitations that we might have within them before putting the scope around this one.
Thank you.
The next one's the Arts Commission. I think we all remember the initial Arts Commission audit a couple of years ago. And so it was decided that due to the findings in that report, it warrants another full audit. They've done a lot of work and put in a lot of processes, and so we would just go back out and kind of do a full audit of their operations. Number 8, Metro Water Services Warehouse Management. This one was actually requested by Director Scott Potter of Metro Water Services. We always appreciate when department heads request audits, especially of themselves. It's a great tone at the top. He has requested other audits before, and they've been very impactful and useful. And so we put this one on there. He actually requested it in the middle of last year, but decided to wait until the audit plan.
Were there specific concerns there?
We haven't dug into that. He was okay putting it off until the audit plan period. I don't think they're significant, but that there are just concerns. The 9th one is boards and commissions and onboarding and training. This one has been an idea that's been submitted a few times, and it's more around where are the efficiencies. Metro is in a very unique situation with all of our boards and commissions. And so kind of looking to see where changes could be made to ensure that those that are on boards and commissions understand their roles and responsibilities and trainings, so that there's transparency and the meetings are happening as they should, but then also that boards and commissions aren't overstepping what their role is. We looked into this in a few different boards and commissions when we've done audits, but at a broader scale, and looking for those efficiencies across all of them would be very impactful. Number 10, the county clerk. County clerk is another one that we have not been to in a while. I think 2015 was our last audit out there. That's why this one's on there. But also we had an investigation not too long ago for a small portion of their collections piece that was theft, which raises red flags because they take a lot of cash. They do a lot of great work, and I think they've got controls, but at the same time, this is one of those audits that we think should be on the plan also, because it's a great opportunity for some of our newer staff, especially if they're trying to take more ownership. These are more straightforward, and so it's more of like almost like cash collections is a very routine cycle, and so it's helpful for them to train and potentially get promoted by taking ownership of some of these audits. Number 11 is the Register of Deeds. This one we have not audited since 2017, I think. Kind of in line with the circuit court clerk, which we recently did. These are types of elected officials that are taking in large sums and making sure that those excess fees, especially now that we have legal opinions around how the calculations are done, but then also the other thing about elected officials is that there's not as much transparency, and so us having the ability to go out there and do an audit and kind of make sure the processes are in place since it's been so long. I will note that this one would be delayed until after the election. Because I believe that this is election year for that position, and we would not want our audit to appear as it's trying to interfere with any type of election. Yes?
May I ask just a quick question, sort of adjacent to this, when I believe the circuit court clerk was with us, and so we kind of elevated some questions or concerns around, use of individual credit cards and previous recommendations and declining those recommendations, and just generally as a space where, you have countywide elected officials, but, offices that, do a lot of cash and have a lot of processes. Do you see, and I do appreciate putting this after the election, that there will be things that are determined, whether through county clerk or register of deeds, that you would see for this body as being applicable across that kind of host or cohort, right? Like I particular to, if there's anything that's sort of translated across, whether it be the credit card use, right? Is that applicable to register of deeds, trustee, county clerk? Just the whole kind of cohort, that's not the right way to refer, or office type or something like that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so there are pieces of it that will translate across, but I think it was kind of be different with each one.
Right.
And we actually did look into credit card use for constitutional offices or elected officials after that meeting, and I don't have the list in front of me, and it's almost half and half.
Okay, yeah.
So there's the opportunity to use them, it's not just some are using them and some are not. The Register of Deeds is not using a Metro credit card, so we don't have that insight. But it's things like that, so you may see similar recommendations that, but because of their space as elected officials, they do have the ability to accept or reject those.
Yes, no. And I appreciate that. I just want to make sure as we, through a regular rotation, relative to, best practice, how long it's been or whatever, when we identify certain things, that they don't just get specifically housed in that, because if it's applicable to a whole kind of set or type,
Yep.
I just want to make sure we don't lose the through line on that to kind of deliver a policy that can be applied
Yes.
uniformly to everyone rather than kind of calling this out or that out.
Yes, and as I believe one of the circuit court clerk ones was about reporting certain information by state code. I believe some of that also applies to the Register of Deeds. Now admittedly, we may not also put it, depending on the wording in the report, you may not, if they're making an effort, because it's now been aware kind of things, we would
Right.
take those into consideration.
I just want to rely on y'all to kind of understand if there's a through
Yes.
line on it, that it's kind of coming back to us from a best practice standpoint rather than this one. Okay, thank you.
That's a great question. I'm trying to think, what is the mechanism to make that happen? Because you're doing your audit, you're making your recommendations as it relates to that specific audit, that while they may, under best practices, be applicable
Right.
to the other departments or agencies within government, nor do we have any policy setting authority. So how does that move out of this?
I think
Committee to-
by virtue of the positions of like the finance director or those on council, it would be if there was legislation that's needed, then we would work with council members. If we brought to your point, it's bringing them, it's raising them to that level to ask for those. And
Yeah, if I may give an example, like one of the recommendations was about, we needed, there was supposed to be monthly reporting that is provided to the mayor's office. So we actually in finance are crafting what we believe that standard reporting will look like, and we are planning to roll that out to everyone that applies to.
But that was something you found through a specific singular audit?
This came as a result.
circuit
when-
court clerk.
Yep.
Okay.
And if you may not remember, but in that report, some of the recommendations were to work with Metro Finance and Metro Legal to establish the criteria, the reporting mechanisms, and so we are in the process of working on that, and then we are planning to roll that out uniformly to everyone that would apply to by the law. If that makes sense, because your through point is spot on, Vice Mayor.
So, I think we talked about this a while back, when we spoke about audits that still have outstanding issues that haven't been addressed, and there being notations on those issues of, well, this requires some action by the council, or this requires some action by whomever it is. Is there still a place where that lives with you, that we can provide a regular report to the council to say, hey, like, here's a list of things that, audit has kind of revealed that we're still waiting on council action for?
I mean, we can do that, we've not in the past, it's a good idea. I will say, I have not seen this year's budget questionnaire from the council, but one area that former audit committee member, current council member Swara, I believe she was the one who pushed to make it, our budget questionnaires now ask, are there any outstanding audit recommendations? Now, we don't have insight into seeing how other departments respond to that, but we get questions often from departments saying, how many recommendations do we have?
Do you have any audit plans?
Yes.
So, starting with what you just said, the answers to those are public, so if y'all ever do want to see them, they are on Nashville.gov, on the council page, under the budget and finance folder. So you can see every department that responded to the budget questionnaire, you're able to see that, and you're able to see it for multiple years as well. So you can see it for this past year as well as the previous ones. My other question was, I think that is very smart to do the audit after the election. similarly to that, the county clerk is having an
Yes.
election, but the
Yes.
county clerk is not running for reelection. So will this audit for the county clerk's office be prior to the election so that it does not look like there was something
Yes.
with the new person? Okay.
If I may, though, Chair, just to kind of circle back on from a process standpoint here, you know, if you all are sort of aggregating things that you feel have applicability beyond the specific audit for internal controls, I presume, like, there's a line of communication between you and whomever is the finance director. I mean, I would say similarly, if there's, you know, a policy recommendation, but I think it kind of remains to be seen the extent to which we would not necessarily formalize it, but maybe have a touch point through our agendas at any particular time. Because I think, you know, depending on how you happen to be thinking that week, you're kind of holding this through line, but then this body changes and then, you know, or staff changes. So, yeah, I would ask us maybe just to kind of continue to think about that, because, you know, when everything's kind of running great, it's getting implemented, but I do think that's a real challenge for our body in particular, with a lot of great council members who are very diligent but are part-time folks, and so the ability to kind of hold those through lines and make sure, like, oh, I you know, this was shared with me, I'm gonna make a note of it, and oh, what happened with that, and circling back. So I think when we have a professional staff that can kind of aggregate that stuff and make sure that line of communication is clear, I think that's really helpful, so.
The next one is the claims settlement process. This wouldn't include vehicle crashes claims, because we actually did just look at those, but there's still a lot of claims out there. And looking at that process to ensure that it's efficient and that it's taking into consideration whatever criteria or best practices, and the communication is accurate whenever working with the individuals who are filing claims against Metro. So that one, yes.
Would that be kind of all across Metro? Because I know there's the legal department touch point on that, but some particular departments who I guess are subject to claims sometimes have internal staff who manage that. And in my view, that seems to sometimes be the disconnect, is that whatever a department may be doing relative to the claim is like it's sort of tracking in this adjacent universe that doesn't speak to legal, and then stuff starts going really slow, even when Metro has said we are at fault, right? And then it just takes like a whole year to process a claim potentially. So will you focus on any particular, I mean, I guess, places based on their volume or their staffing or whatever, not to target any department, but ones that have the, I guess, the highest liability, but
Yes,
just
and so this
keep
would
it
be
to
one of those Metro-wide
Okay.
audits that we start with. But then what happens usually with those is we kind of scope it down, and we've seen this with the HR harassment, when you start to look at certain departments that crop up as having more claims, more complaints or anything like that. And we do more procedures, we more specific procedures usually around those departments, but we still try to include surveys or we're reaching out to all the Metro departments, because it could happen within all Metro
Got it.
departments.
Thank you.
Yes.
Well, clarifying question on that. Are you looking at departments that have more instances based on just the number of instances or the number of instances in respect to the size of the department? It's like a small department that may have only a couple of instances, but maybe every employee had an instance, versus like a really big department who had more, but it's because of the size of the department and relatively it's not as many per person.
That's a great question. So this has not been scoped yet, so that's what we would take into consideration. And that's a great, I mean, almost retroactively, to apply, and think of it in that, because I think a lot of times we look at number and amount, but thinking from the perspective of, I guess, size, we'll definitely take that into consideration.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one is cybersecurity. So we engaged one of our consultants, Fraser and Dieter, to do an IT risk assessment.
Or rather,
Yes.
overtime,
Oh, I missed
number
overtime.
13.
Okay, 13 is overtime. This is a common audit that's done across a lot of different audit shops, because you can do it with data, a lot of data. You do dig into the numbers, but you can start to look over anomalies and outliers, and since we have somebody on our staff who is really good with data, he's currently doing the credit card audit, while also juggling the homeless services one. But we've been trying to put something on there with analytics, and so that we can look at it from a metro-wide perspective with the data that we have, and that's a good one for that. Just kind of looking at different perspectives of it. As more and more audit shops do it, they look at it from different ways, and not just the conventional, what department has a lot. But it's kind of looking more into the why, or who's getting the overtime and things like that. And so that one, yes.
Care for me. So will this be looked at both sort of fiscally, but also relative to FTEs? So hourly employees versus salary employed, and if salary employees are having to work a lot of overtime effectively, maybe that department needs another position.
Yes.
So that one person is not burdened. So we'll look at it.
If looking at that
holistically.
perspective too, because I think when we did the last overtime audit, it's been many, many years, that was one of the instances is this an indication that there needs to be more staffing, or is this what is the reason for it?
Yeah.
But yes, that's,
Yeah, okay, great, thank you.
yes.
Or they haven't filled their vacancies.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Next one is cybersecurity. So we engaged Fraser and Dieter to do an IT risk assessment of all of Metro, because we don't have an IT audit expertise within our office. And we always outsource these, but we also are just going based on either input from our ITS department, which is great, or looking across at other entities, but we don't know what's specific to Metro. Cybersecurity cropped up as one of their severe risks that they thought that we should audit in their list of audits ideas for us, and so that's why we picked this one. Yes.
Can I go back to number 9 really quick? I think that's really good. Could we add conflict of interest on that too? I just say that, like, you brought it up, like, oh gosh, we just happened to be looking at our bylaws and realized we didn't have conflict of interest. Just to make sure that there's conflict of interest statements across all those boards and commissions, I think would be really important, Lauren. Thank you. Or Director Riley, sorry.
So that is the proposed plan. What we also always include, we also have follow-up audits on there, but we do those concurrently with other audits. But what we have on the second page is our other audits that we considered. These may be, admittedly, we probably have a list of 20 other ideas that didn't make it on here. But these are the ones that we thought were kind of the ones that we thought most about, as well as some ideas that were submitted. The first one is Oracle Cloud Security and Access Management. This was another area that our IT risk assessment flagged as being high risk, and admittedly, after being on a panel with somebody from the state last week that was an investigator, it's a big risk when we do these huge migrations that security falls through the cracks, because we're just trying to get things done. And so that was why that was considered, but since cybersecurity was a higher risk on their IT risk assessment, we put cybersecurity on there.
Would that also be one you'd use someone outside?
Yes, we'd had to outsource that one. The next two are health department related, and they're areas of the health department that we've either never looked at, which is restaurant inspections, or animal control, which it's been a very long time since we've looked at that. These are ones that we've seen other animal services audits done across the U.S. We've seen other restaurant inspection audits done across the U.S. just with risks that you don't think about, whether it's the welfare of the animals and the way that they're being kept, or the fact that restaurants aren't getting inspected that are supposed to be getting inspected. So there's a public health piece of that. So those are two that we consider. Body-worn camera, data privacy, it's another IT one that we would have to outsource, but it's an important one because there is camera footage that's being maintained. Who's able to change it, who's able to access it, and making sure it's secure. Partners in Care program. This is a type of program that is being implemented in many different cities and municipalities. And so we think there's opportunities there to benchmark our program with those and see how, like, if we're meeting our goals and not just that, are we meeting some of the best practices that some of the other programs are putting in place? As this program gets expanded, are there areas that could be improved? The Human Relations Commission, this one was put on there because of the investigation that the state released. The reason we didn't put it on the plan is because they are making changes. In fact, we can jump ahead a little bit, but implementation-wise, we're following up on those deficiencies noted by the state. So we know that there are changes that are happening. So we didn't put it on the plan because those may take a little time. But just to say that it's on our radar for at least next year if it's not on this plan. The Historical Commission and the Historic Zoning Commission, this started on our plan last year, it got moved off. But because we have so many other opportunities and higher risks that we see, we kept it on the second list, or the secondary list for this time. The winter storm response. This one we got lots of questions about. So our office cannot audit NES. They are outside of our scope. Based on the Metro Code section that lays out our scope of services. But Metro departments did a lot within the winter storm. And so a lot of audit shops will do after event audits to see that response. This one was brought up a few times from a few different people. The reason we didn't put it on the plan was because there are certain commissions, I believe, that are being formed, and we're waiting to see what they do, because we don't want to duplicate any work that they're going to do. And so we're waiting to put that on there. If it doesn't look like things are happening, we can always move this onto the plan. Construction permitting process, it's just a big process, and Metro's always growing, so it's an important process. There's been some changes, I believe, with some of the systems that are used for that permitting process within the past couple of years, kind of see if it's still efficient. Departments are communicating. MMPS's comprehensive operational audit, so this was an idea. We did one back in 2014, we outsourced it. It came away with a lot of good observations and recommendations, but it was expensive. So we would need more funding for this. Yes?
And what year, you just
I
said?
believe it's 2014. And so the cost of it was around $600,000. So we would need significant funding to do this, but it's not a bad idea. I mean, they looked at every single thing you could at Metro Nashville Public Schools. What we do instead normally is we now are in the process of trying to carve out pieces that were higher risk within that to see if maybe those can be formulated into audits and smaller audits, since we ourselves can't do that full operational audit. And the last one is just some contracted vehicle and beverage tax collection processes. I mean, these are big areas where Metro gets money, and so looking at the processes around them, the collection processes around them is always usually beneficial to Metro because it's money to be received if their process isn't working. So.
I wanted just to ask a few related questions on considered audits. So when I look at things like restaurant inspections or construction permitting, things that I would presume are in publicly accessible data sets or not, or have been historically. I know, several administrations back, but going kind of through multiple mayors, there was a real focus on kind of public data. And I feel a little bit like that may still be there, but I don't kind of hear about it as much or really kind of know where to go for that in particular. And so just from a transparency, accountability in the intervening time, say, things that are, that elevate kind of community confidence, but could just frankly be a public-facing data set for that purpose. Can you sort of talk to how we decide what is in public-facing data sets, who manages that? Does the health department say, I would hope for transparency, obviously when we go in a restaurant, we can maybe see it's supposed to be posted, right? You got this grade. But does that live in a publicly accessible, consumable data set that says, this restaurant has been inspected annually, it has this score? I think sometimes we can kind of cure for general concerns around things if we just have, I'm not saying that doesn't mean we don't also audit them on a certain rotation, but that just comes to mind a lot, also around like permitting processes. Like we'll hear a lot as council members, like, it took me, 50 days to get this or to get that. If codes can kind of put that out and say, this permit was requested, this permit was rendered, like facts are facts, right? So, can you sort of speak to that, those public data sets and where they are and if we have them and who decides which ones are, it's the people's, like if they ask for it, they can ask for it, but we don't wanna make it so onerous, right? Like we wanna, that kind of public facing piece and how we do that.
Admittedly, I'm not completely sure what decides whether or not, what it's public facing, or what lives in those data sets, but I can tell you that for the most part, I would believe that the department owns the information. So when we used to post how many audits we had done per month, or I believe that we've migrated from that performance management where we don't have those metrics out there anymore, but we used to be the ones responsible. We have incorporated in audits like our sidewalks audit. We actually checked to make sure that that information that was publicly posted, or if they were putting out reports, and we're doing this with homeless service as well, those public facing reports, are they accurate? What's feeding into it, are those numbers really right? Because it's on the department. And so if you wanted to make yourself look better, you could. For the restaurant inspections, but you also have to look at this from, there is the information such as how long a permit took. But we would go in and look at the process to see if there were bottlenecks. Is it poor communication between, is there a certain department that is slowing down those permits from being moved forward? Whereas it may say that it was only 30 days instead of 50 days. Was there something keeping it at 30 days when it should have been 15? So we would go in there and look at the efficiency portion of it to make sure that all those departments are talking, because especially with the permitting process, everybody's getting everybody's getting the drawings that are submitted and everybody's supposed to be looking at them, but one department could be holding them up. And if there's efficiencies that can be gained from that. With restaurant inspections, what some of the other audits found was there's thousands of restaurants, but only a small portion of them are actually being looked at regularly. And so is it a matter of understaffing? Is it a matter of prioritizing something else over restaurant inspections? And so it's looking at the other pieces of it and not just the data pieces of it. But we would look at those data pieces of it as well. Now where they're housed, honestly, not sure.
Yeah, and I think that had been the question in the past. It was like we sort of stood up because I think it was, of a certain era, right? Like local governments were having public data officers, and so it was all aggregated into this one place on the website, and you could go there and get a whole lot of interesting data sets, right? But it didn't maybe reciprocally live on the department's website, and kind of who was the leadership asking for the data set to be populated, and obviously like if it's out there, you want it to be accurate or you pull from it. I just think it's interesting because it happens somewhat adjacent to the work of your department. And I just think, in the intervening time when something is on, a kind of a to-do list for audit, if we can make sure that whatever public-facing aspect of that is in fact up to date, people know where to find it, or if it was an inquiring member of the community or a council member, and you could, hey, I hear a lot about restaurant inspections. Oh, well, on healthdepartment.gov, whatever, you can go and see, and per their data, they are 85% on time, X scores of C and above. Like, sometimes I think that it doesn't replace your function, and you have to look and make sure it has the accuracy. But I would say just generally, I feel like in metro government, that's sort of fallen away a little bit, because maybe I think in different political cycles it's more popular or not, So I am just interested as a committee to kind of understand where that lives, who manages it, and who decides what data sets go on there.
And I will say that I know that the mayor's office and the Office of Performance Management has done a lot with adding certain data sets, and I'm not been involved in it, but I do know that they are, I believe the last meeting that was in, we're trying to aggregate it more to one area, but like you're saying, is it being pointed to from the departmental websites.
Right, I mean,
as
so
well.
there's internal operational maintenance, but
Yes.
if we're not sort of telling the story of the work that we're doing and making sure people know where to get it, because if I'm a citizen that cares about restaurant inspection, I'm not gonna go to some obscure operational performance person in the mayor's office or go to some old legacy data website, right? Like, I'm just gonna go to the health department webpage and look for restaurant inspections and expect the data to be there. So I just think there's, you know, in a general way, I would like to understand that better for the work of this committee. Thank you, Chair.
Any other questions regarding the plan?
Just one other comment from me on the winter storm response. I think it's totally appropriate to wait and see kind of what the scope of this commission looks like and what they're looking at. But I would also kind of put that on a, you know, hotline of if you see a reason to do an independent audit of certain things that isn't being done, I think the public is going to expect us to do that, so.
I will share that by the executive order, myself and Ms. Porterfield, who is the elected pro tem of the council, have been named to serve, and you know, subsequent folks to be appointed by the mayor. But I think I'm very mindful that there are a lot of things sort of co-tracking, right? I understand NES's board voted yesterday to have an independent audit. And so, yes, I think there's gonna be some overlap. We wanna eliminate, you know, sometimes redundancies are good, right? What did this entity find and that one? But I think we're very mindful that it is top of mind for everybody, and that there may be discrete portions, while the auditor spoke to NES in particular, there is a whole host of things to be looked at across all of Metro government relative to departments and communication. And so I think if there are maybe discrete pieces that are related to the work of that commission, that might make some sense. So I appreciate your point. Yeah.
Any other comments, questions, suggestions for changes? Then do I hear a motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You've got your audit plan.
Thank you.
Chair, may I just give a compliment to the auditor real quick, if I
Please.
may? I really wanted to express appreciation to Auditor Riley for sending a compiled piece. She and I spoke a little bit about, you know, council's engagement with the audit function and sort of understanding what is a performance audit, what can be audited, what are example audit objectives, how are audit ideas submitted, and just getting kind of on an annual cadence of a great FAQ. And I just wanted to, when February was coming around, I was like, oh, we talked about, and then it was like in my inbox, and I was like, and it is just excellent and really well done, and I'm like, of course she got that done. So I just wanted to compliment the auditor on that communication to council. I think that will be helpful as far as council's engagement with this committee, so thank you. Thank you.
I would love a copy of that.
Oh, I can email it.
Oh, yeah, or if you would share with the committee, it was really an excellent piece. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for highlighting that.
And then do you want to speak to the status? Is there additional things to talk about?
I was gonna
there?
say, there's some administrative items. So our implementation, we had 17 recommendations that were due. 16 of them were reported as implemented. One was asked for a revised date. That was the Metro clerk, and it's putting together training materials on public records. There's just not the capacity, so they're gonna look into engaging a consultant, so they needed a little bit more time to do that. I'll also note that there were a few that were due at the end of January, that we gave a pass to some of our departments as they were, we gave them a little more time since they were focused on other events, the weather being a big item that was not the priority to respond to our recommendations, so we gave them a little bit more time to follow up with them. Next next is our project status. We don't have the audit plan in here because we started a new audit plan, but we do have 4 projects that are in our draft reporting phase, and then 11 that are also in process and planning or field work. And that includes some that are being done by consultants. We also have 2 open allegations that Paul's looking into and drafting the reports on. I believe one of them is a draft report, the other one is almost a draft report. But we're also receiving other allegations, so he's staying busy. And we're getting those wrapped out. And so that's our project status, if there's any questions about project status or implementation. Okay. The next piece of this is annually we send out a report to council about our accomplishments for the year. This is required, I believe, in our bylaws. But this is, y'all have a version of it in here. It looks a little condensed, but that's because it's supposed to be viewed online. And that way it's easier to read. And so it's just an opportunity for us to highlight our great audits that we've done, let everybody know who's on our committee in case they have questions or anything like that. We also assert that, we didn't have anybody that interfered with any of our work, and it's important to do that, but also for transparency purposes, this is kind of our annual report. And it'll also be posted on our website. Next piece.
Very nice.
Yeah, thank you.
The next piece of this is our budget. We are almost at 50% of our budget. We're staying on track. We're spending well, staying staffed. It's usually staffing that makes us below budget, but we're actually staying staffed. We do have one open position from our individual who retired at the end of December. And with the Oracle migration, it delayed our posting of that position a little bit, and so it's getting posted this week, I think. So hopefully we'll be able to fill it. What we do now is we usually fill positions. He left as an auditor 2. He was retiring it as an auditor 2. But in order to build up individuals, kind of learn the audit process that we do, we hire in people as an auditor 1. But they have the opportunity to climb quickly, but that way we can train them and onboard them. It's easier on us. And that, I think, is it. Oh, and also, I forgot. What we did between last meeting and this meeting, we did hire one auditor 1 for an open position that we did have. We have Philip Katsadoris, and he started at the beginning of January.
Welcome to him.
That's it.
Do we have any things to consider for future meetings? Thank you, Laura.
May I give one more compliment?
Absolutely.
To Finance Director Reed, who came to the Budget and Finance Committee to report on a whole host of internal controls and processes and education for finance managers and administrators in departments. And I don't want to steal your thunder, Director Reed, but that was really impressive and appreciated. Also procurement around some of those processes. Council, under the leadership of Chair Porterfield as budget chair. We did have some working groups under the umbrella of our standing committee of budget and finance. One of those was specifically focused on procurement because it was something that council hears about a lot and engages with. Ms. Swara was the chair of that under the umbrella of leadership of Ms. Porterfield. And I could see sort of the through lines of things that were elevated in that working group that were taken over to Director Reed's work in that new director. And it was one of those times when you're like sitting in the council chamber and you feel like, aha, these through lines, these things that we have elevated as concerns historically are kind of being heard and being implemented into internal process and control. And it was one of my yay Metro government little heart flutter moments because I'm a nerd, but I really felt the intention and the good work. And so I just wanted to commend you, and if there's anything you want to share with this committee at this time or in the future on that work, I would welcome that.
Okay, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much, Vice Mayor. We actually have Finance 101 going on right now. We're actually doing 2 sessions, so we started a training program, an education program, and it's generally roughly about 40 hours a week. And so we tested it out on finance folks first, and we had rave reviews. And so this week we actually have our first finance group from within the departments who are attending. And it's an opportunity to learn, educate, understand big picture, understand the role of finance, understand their roles. And we provide a lot of resource information, guides, where to find this, where to find that. And then this coming spring, late spring, we reissued all of our policies, financial policies. We actually have a new round of like about 4 new policies that are getting to go out before the end of the month. And then we're actually gonna do training in, probably around that April, May timeframe on specifically the financial policies. We also, for the first time, we have hired a person in OFA, which is Office of Financial Accountability. And we actually did our first financial policy monitoring, where we actually go into the department to say, are you following the financial policies? And that's something else that we're really excited about, and we really hope to roll that out and continue to grow that, because it's one thing to have a policy, it's another thing to understand and educate yourself on the policy, and then it's another thing to actually follow the policies. And if you've sat here, you've seen that a lot of times we have a policy, but it may not be, and a lot of times it's not ill intent, it's just they don't, we haven't done a really good job of educating and training on the policies. And so we are really trying to change that narrative across Metro. So thank you so much for that. And then really proud of all the purchasing work, which I could go on and on, but I'm sure, but the purchasing work has been great. I mean, we're gonna roll out a pilot program for a sourcing coordinator and trying to speed up some times on procurement cycles. And anyway, we've got more to come on that.
Great.
But thank you so much. I appreciate that, Vice Mayor. We're proud of the work.
We should be.
Yeah, we're trying. It's a lot, but it's like Lauren, you can't get around to it all. Like when Lauren says, we haven't audited this department, and I'm like, oh my gosh, be still my heart. But there's only so many resources, and so you do what you can. So, but we believe training is an easy lift, because if you understand it, you can follow it.
Thank you.
Any other comments? If not, then the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you, Chair.